Hi, everyone. Again, this is Craig Nordberg-Bohm with the North American Men Engaged Network. Delighted to have you join us this afternoon in the Northeast at 2 o'clock, wherever you are. Wonderful that you have spent the time to join us today. I think we'll get started. Please feel free to introduce yourself in chat if you are so inclined. Need to say a few words of introduction, and then we'll get going. So the North American Men Engaged Network is a member of the Global Men Engaged Alliance, which many of you would know and are familiar with. There are 7 regions organized around the world within the Alliance. All these new ones forming, so maybe more than that, but there are sub-regions as well. Our region, NAMEN, encompasses Canada and the United States. You may visit our websites at menengaged.org and namen.menengaged.org for the details. Our session this afternoon is titled Promoting Youth Engagement and Leadership. We're looking forward to this conversation in all of its forms. We plan to run until about an hour and a half to 3:30 Eastern Time. And we're very pleased to have with us today folks representing 2 organizations. One in the United States called the Performance Project, and the other in Canada called the Next Gen Men. Both are focused squarely on youth programming and have extensive experience to share with us today. So I'm excited to have them here. I'll introduce our presenters shortly, but first allow me to cover a few housekeeping details, some of which you're very familiar with, being the Zoom world we've been living in so long. We're recording today. Notice that. Turn on and off your video accordingly. Turn off your video if you don't want to appear in our recording. This will be released in the next few weeks, and we'll let you know that it's available. Please stay on mute unless you're speaking. Mute again afterwards. We'll be using the raise your hand feature. Once you raise your hand, we'll be able to, and you get called upon, then we'll be able to send you an unmute message and be able to unmute yourself. So notice and look for your raise your hand feature, which is under the, I believe, the participants panel. Again, please feel free to introduce yourself in chat, and we'll use chat for questions primarily, and of course some conversation as it may occur. You'll hear us say from time to time, if you have questions, please put them into chat. We hope for today to be as much a dialogue as possible, being a roundtable discussion. So we will hope to hear your voice. We will hope to be able to call on folks who are attending to talk about this question and this interest in youth involvement in our work, in this work, promoting gender equity, equality, and justice. So we'll invite and these discussions and comments in the second half. Notice also that language translation is available in this session on a text basis. I want to tell you about it briefly. The upper portion of most of your screens, there is something called Live. It's red usually, and next on Custom Live Stream Service. If you click on that, you'll get a choice called View Stream on the Custom Live Service. If you do that, it will open another browser window that will link to a service called Wordly, and it will pre-populate a code that will get you into today's session, and you'll see our text appear on that window, and you can select from many languages. So you can pick a language that fits best for you if you would like to have that as part of your experience today. That's how we will offer translation. So let's see. What else shall we say? I guess allow me now to introduce our presenters, and we'll get moving. Our 2 organizations, the Performance Project and Next Gen Men, as I mentioned. I'll start with the folks who are going to be joining us from the Performance Project. Their co-director, Julie Lichtenberg, is with us today. She's a cultural activist in theater and visual artist, has worked in community settings as a teacher, performer, director, incorporating visual arts, physical theater, and social justice since the 80s, 1980 and since. Involved in various theater projects and performances, and we're excited to have her here. She currently facilitates, teaches, and directs their program called First Generation, a multilingual youth ensemble in Western Massachusetts, which brings together young adults ages 15 to 22 who have self-identified as first generation in some respect for artistic training. And that leads me to want to introduce their second person who's with us today, Justice Garcia. Justice has been with First Generation since he was 12 and a half years old. He's the only member to have joined at such a young age. He's a writer, a dancer, theater artist, visual artist, and community activist. He co-created and performed in First Generation's most recent production, Stand Tall. Mi gente, stand tall, my people, and has been mentoring new First Generation members as they join us. And both of you, when we get to say hello, to correct any of this information or add to it as you may need. So welcome both of you. In addition, we have our program from Canada, Next Gen Men. We have Jonathon Reed with us today, the youth program manager. Jonathon organizes and facilitates boys programs and collaborates with parents, schools, and community partners. With a background in activism, Jonathon seeks to empower young people to think critically and make their voices heard. Jonathon is a longtime advocate for LGBTQ plus youth and has years of experience working with boys to expand definitions of masculinities. There are lots and lots of cool things they have to share with you, and I'm looking forward to hearing from them both. Let's move on to the presentations and getting started. They're both going to say a few words and share some information, some thoughts, some questions to get their conversation started. Then we'll lead into some questions that they have for each other. And once that moves along, we will then turn to the questions that you in the audience have at that point about their thoughts as we go. So I'm going to call on Jonathon first. Jonathon, hi.
Hello, this is Jonathon.
Hi. So your floor is yours to say a few words about Next Gen and some thoughts about today's conversation.
Totally. I am also just joining on my computer. I decided, you know what, let me just check the internet again. The internet was supposed to start working actually around noon Eastern time, so it's a little overdue, and it looks like I'm on.
Okay.
So I'm going to stay on the landline, I think, but I'm going to potentially turn on video.
Oh, there you are. I see a picture of you.
Yeah, right on. And just see how that goes. Yeah, and thank you. I think that was Bianca who just spotlighted my video. Thanks for that. So let me know if there's any technical issues. I've done a lot of things on Zoom, but I haven't done a landline video mashup. So do let me know if I run into any difficulties there. So thanks again for that introduction and for setting the space. I'll just reiterate. So I'm Jonathon, and I'm a young adult. I predominantly work with young adolescent boys, talking about things like gender stereotypes, like mental health, healthy relationships, and gender equality. And that's a huge passion of mine. One of the places that the passion originates is, as a young person myself, if you're really keenly watching my video, you might have noticed that I've got nail polish on. As a young person, I had these little quirks to my identity. I had long hair. I had different interests that made me not fit into the stereotypical expectations for boyhood and masculinity. And so I heard all kinds of stuff about, you're a girl, you're a fag, you're a gay. And so even at a really young age, had witnessed and experienced gender-based violence and had this deeply felt sense of like, what I get told about who I can be as a boy and who I can become as a young man is not fair. That people would try to control me or limit who I could be. And so that was one of the earliest places that I first started thinking about gender justice as a really small, relatively vulnerable young person. And so that's where the passion originated. Right now, what it looks like, I'm not going to delve too deeply into this, but what it looks like is, and actually, for the record, it looks very different now because of COVID. But what it has looked like over the last several years is school-based programming with grade 7 and grade 8 boys, so 12 and 13-year-old boys, doing activities, building relationship, having discussions, and giving them basically space to connect with each other and to explore what manhood means to them and what all those different things look like in their lives. And I'm going to quickly see if it's possible for me to share a couple photos, because it'd be really nice to be able to visualize this. But because I only just got on my computer, got the internet working, I'm not sure if that'll all come together. But I'll quickly share about 3 images. 1 second, I'm just going to pull them up and I'm going to put my phone down. Thank you, by the way, for your patience on all of these things. So these are the photos that I wanted to give just to visualize what we're talking about with this program. So this first photo is myself and a group of boys celebrating Movember, which you may have heard of. It's in different countries all around the world. It's a play on the word November to sort of talk about men's health. This is a photo of a young guy named Shahir playing basketball in the sort of recreational space that we have after the more like intentional programmatic time. And I guess I did this slightly out of order because the last photo that I wanted to share is this activity called the rape culture pyramid, which you may have heard of or as like the rape culture pyramid, the gender-based violence pyramid, or just the violence pyramid. And it's a visualization of sexual violence. And it's in our context, it's an opportunity for boys to explore how they could contribute or challenge the foundation, contribute to or challenge the foundations of sexual violence or gender-based violence in our culture. So things like rape jokes. If you look really carefully at the photo, you can see rape jokes, catcalling, sexist phrases, and locker room banter are all things that boys, even in grade 7 and 8, right, are witnessing or participating in, or will be soon in their lives as adolescents. So the reason that I wanted to share these photos, when we're talking about youth engagement and sort of advocacy and activism, I won't ramble for too much longer. But the thing that I wanted to highlight, and I'm excited to sort of jam with Julie and Justice about, is the relational aspect of engagement. And so I'll go back to this photo to, I guess, like, if I could draw your attention to one thing, it would be the closeness. That these boys aren't necessarily friends. They know each other. Some of them are in the same class with each other. And some of them are friends, but a lot of them are, sort of like acquaintances. They might know each other's names when we started this program. And so this was maybe week 4 of our time together. And you can see they have like their arms around each other. We're really physically close, especially in the days before COVID. But that closeness and that sense of connection for me is something that I've grown to like appreciate as not just like a nice thing that happens in our time together, but like the core of what we're doing by facilitating connection with young people. And then, like I said already, creating opportunities for them to explore meaningful topics. That's where transformation can happen. An example of this is and I'll jump to this photo for this, because in this session, I am doing education. I'm teaching them, what does the word victim blaming mean? What are the possible connections between catcalling and sexual assault? So there's education happening there. And one of the most fascinating pieces of research that I've picked up in my work over the last couple of years was this research project with Richard Hawley and Michael Reichert. And you might have heard of Michael Reichert for publishing a book, I think, called How to Raise a Boy. And the research piece was exploring what are the qualities of effective educational experiences, particularly for boys. And what they found was that teachers often were picking up on basically technical aspects of their teaching. So a sense of drama or teamwork or competition. And what the boys they surveyed, and this was thousands of boys, what the boys said was they just kept coming back to the relational qualities of their teachers, saying, my teacher knows me. My teacher has indicated that they have an interest in my well-being. My teacher demonstrates respect and capability in the classroom. And those relational qualities were for me have sort of become like the foundation of what I do. And sort of like this sort of, I'll send it off with the quote. One of the analyses from Richard and Michael was, so what it looks like is that it's not so much how boys learn, but for whom will boys learn. And in my experience, they'll learn with each other, and they're quite eager to explore meaningful connection and topics that are totally relevant in their lives with each other, as well as with role models and adults who are sensitive and committed to both their needs and their vision for the kinds of young men that they could be. So I'm going to park it there for now, I think. But that's sort of a glimpse into the experiences that like I'm bringing, with me. As we were setting up this call, I had a kid. So I've been like off the internet all day. Can you imagine? And had a 12-year-old text me, "I miss you. Where are you?" And I can't even remember why I just brought that up. So I'll leave it there for now. Oh yeah, I was going to say this is what I'm bringing with me. Those voices and those connections and experiences are what I'm bringing with me. So I wanted to share those photos and a couple stories. But I'm going to stop there for now. I'm excited to hear more from Julie. This is also my first time meeting Justice, so I'm super excited to hear a bit from Justice. And I will contribute later, but I won't mute myself, but I'll stop talking and I'll start listening.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jonathon. Julie, you all can jump in.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Julie, and I use she, they pronouns. I'm a co-director, one of the 3 co-directors of the Performance Project. And this is Justice.
Hi, I'm Justice. I use any pronouns, so like anything. And I'm an ensemble member and a mentor, I guess. Okay.
So we had thought that, like Jonathon's work with Next Gen, we really see building relationships as at the very core of our work. So we're excited for this conversation today. But we also do this through an artistic process. And in theater, there's something called ensemble building, which the word ensemble, if you speak French, literally means together. And so it is a group building process. And within that group building process, a lot of things happen. And we thought that because ritual is also a big part of our work, we would share with you first our first generation welcome, which whenever the group gets together, we sit in a circle and the circle is opened. And then all the languages in the group, and because we work with a lot of different languages, people from different cultures and who speak different languages, the first generation welcome has been translated into at least 10 languages so far. But Justice is going to share with you the first gen welcome in 2 languages. So.
Bienvenidos a Primera Generación. Somos una comunidad de muchas edades y ascendencias, unidos para crear arte, divertirnos, trabajar duro, relajar, crecer, hacer magia, crear un espacio seguro y respetuoso, sentir conexión y aprender a fomentar y apoyar unos a otros. Practicamos liderazgo, clamando una voz pública en nuestras comunidades y enviamos mensajes profundos hacia el mundo a través de nuestras obras de teatro. Bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome to First Generation. We are a community of many ages and ancestries who come together to create art, have fun, work hard, relax, be challenged, grow, make magic, feel connection, create a safe and respectful space, and learn to nurture and support each other. We practice leadership, claim a public voice in our communities, and send powerful messages out into the world through our performances. Welcome.
welcome. So sometimes that welcome is able to capture in a very succinct way what I can't, I could talk around a lot, but it was created by first gen members after a few years. And I feel like it really captures who we are and what we do. To elaborate a little bit, I love that your group is called Next Gen. A lot of times people call us Next Generation by mistake. But we chose the name First Generation with the idea that we were working with youth who identify as first generation in some way. So the youth who come to First Generation, we create a space especially for youth who are growing up in this country, who come from other places. So they are the first in their families to be growing up in the US, the first in their families to be speaking English. They may be the first in their families to be graduating from high school. And then that's the conventional definition of first generation in this country is, maybe first to be going to college as well. But we also expanded it to the first in one's family to be identifying openly as LGBTQ+, the first in one's family to be an activist, the first in one's family to break a silence, the first in one's family to be a feminist, the first in one's family to be drug-free, the first in one's family to be incarcerated. And basically, the definition expands as new members join us. We didn't know the word intersectionality when we started First Generation in 2008, but now, because all these identities are being expressed through performance and conversation, it's a nice conversation to have under the umbrella of intersectionality. And when we come together, we start with this opening, and we always say English last because, like Next Generation, I think our focus at the very core of what we do is to create a space that centers marginalized voices. So we have been primarily for BIPOC immigrant and refugee youth in Western Massachusetts. And we have felt that it was really important to center the non-English speaking voices first, because those are the voices in Springfield and Holyoke who, the young people may end up sitting alone at the cafeteria because they've arrived in the country and they speak Nepali, Burundi, Arabic, Kirundi, Kirundi, and yet, and they're not able to connect with American kids because of the language barriers. So when we get together, we go through a process of sharing ideas and building ensemble. And then over the course of a year, 18 months, we create a performance that touches upon people's stories, whatever themes and stories they want to share with the world, but also connects with larger social justice issues, or systemic issues, I should say, like racism, homophobia, xenophobia, misogyny. I don't know what some of the others are, but they come up in relation to people's personal stories. So before we go on too long, I think perhaps we should share a performance moment, because how we get there and what we do can be brought out in conversation. But maybe this is the moment to share kind of what is one of the ways that we do build our group and focus our dialogues. So here we go. So this performance comes out of about an 18-month process. This is just two scenes put together from Stand Tall Mi Gente, which means Stand Tall My People. This piece didn't have one central theme per se. It was a lot of different stories put together, but something that that everyone agreed on at the beginning of the process was that they wanted people who saw the performance to understand that youth voice was really important. And that was actually articulated by you. Yeah. So 2 moments in Stanton we have to.
I'm the voice of the lost,
the quiet,
the loud,
the poor,
the educated.
I'm the voice
of the intellectual, colorful,
street kid,
the dismissed,
the innocent.
I am the voice of pain,
hypersexualized, lost, innocent,
long nights,
alone.
I'm the voice of
Black and brown lives matter.
Hashtag
Free PR.
Hashtag
Not my president.
Hashtag
Get out. Hashtag me too. I can't breathe.
I'm the voice of the oceans, the dreamers,
Music,
the movers,
adrenaline junkie,
poverty.
project kid.
I am who you say I am. I am the voice of the one with no guidance,
the ones from parents who verbally abuse them,
I am the voice of single parent homes,
of struggle,
of heartbreak,
the ones who are scared to cry,
left behind.
the ones that hide.
I am the voice of the reserved,
misunderstood,
mixed misfit, teen quirky,
the insecure,
The nervous,
the ones who run away,
the ones who fight,
the bold.
agendered,
transgendered,
cisgendered, gender fluid,
I am
yo soy.
Boricua,
So deep in this dream of justice and liberation.
the voice
la voz,
of learning and witnessing. I am the voice
of the welcomer,
the good and the bad,
peace,
art.
creativity,
I am the voice,
the unwelcome,
the silent,
the suppressed,
the oppressed,
the angry and the
the
scared,
people who cross our borders,
those who were never
the
heard.
voiceless,
I am the voice,
the people that want change,
The
the
ferocious,
truth,
teens,
the youth. I am the voice.
hate and love,
The people that get
the
abandoned.
confused,
the defenseless,
Yo soy la voz.
justice,
Justicia,
the united,
resistencia, movement. I am the voice.
the empowered
I am the voice.
of our ancestors.
I am the voice,
Yo soy la voz. I am
the voice of
power.
So that is a small clip. How are we with time?
We're good with time. 2:30 now.
So I feel like maybe just to give a 2 more minute overview of what we do. So there's definitely academic support, and when it's not our focus, but when someone is in the group and expresses that they're falling behind or they need help or tutoring, we connect them with one of our college mentors. And a big part of what we do is build, we do trainings in peer counseling. So you learn to really support each other. And I'm going to pass it to you if I like to fill in pieces of, do you want a couple other things?
Okay. Well, first generation, I think, is all that, but to bring it to a more personal level, first generation is a family. Especially to me, first generation for me was an escape to get away from violence, to get away from abuse. And for many, many, many other people, it's to get out of the streets. It's to get away from, the big world, the scary world. And when we come into first generation, we're not in the world, we're in our world. And of course, we talk about the world, but we're together and we have our time together. And I would say that first gen really saves lives. I don't know how to put it any other way. I feel like it saved my life. I feel like it has saved other people's lives. And it opens a lot of opportunities because first gen has so many connections. We can go and watch performances. We can go and take classes And we can, First Gen can even take us to tour colleges, help us write our college applications. First generation really opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people who don't think that they have any opportunity or don't believe in themselves. And they teach us to love ourselves. First Gen teaches us to love each other. And First Gen also, with the performance and the skill building, teaches you a lot of important things. Public speaking, really, really, really scary and really challenging for somebody who has never done it. But First Gen teaches you to do it because that's what we do. And some of us may not end up performing, but we still build skills and we still learn from each other, and we learn how to see the world in a different lens, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I love everything you said. And one thing that came to mind is, if we're really holding social justice at our core, then access is really important. And so we don't just sit around and talk about social justice issues, but the performance is a way that through dialogue and through the performances, young people in First Gen feel like they can actually do something about it by getting their opinions and their voices out and maybe changing some hearts and minds. And then, again, creating access. So we're working with a group of young people, 99% of them, their families haven't gone to college yet. And so this is a goal. And so it's equally as important to do everything we can to create access to that pathway. And not just talk about all the possibilities and the brilliance in the group, but try to help make it happen. So I think maybe we've said enough.
I'm going to test my audio here. How does that, am I echoing? Am I okay?
Sounds better. It was echoing just at the beginning, but not now.
Yeah, then I moved the phone. So is this better quality?
This is good.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to mute my, that's mute. I think that was, again, whoever's doing the technological support, you're doing amazing responsive work. I don't know who that is, but great. So what was I going to say? That was an awesome overview. Wow, I distracted myself with the technological thing. Can I jump into a question that came up for me? Or is there do we need okay, great. So I think, and maybe I'll just I'll just maybe take Craig's role a little bit and say what we're going to do for the next little bit is Julie and I and Justice are going to bounce some questions around, but our hope, and maybe I'm speaking for everybody a little bit too much, but I think our hope is that we are priming the pump for folks in the audience to also contribute their thoughts and to ask questions. I'm sure that Julia and Justice and I will have an amazing, enlightening session if we just go back and forth. But we also want to honor there's really valuable perspectives and thoughts and ideas and questions that you folks are bringing as well. So by all means, the chat is open. I think you're also welcome to raise your hand if anything that we talk about sparks anything for you. My first question that I thought of, and man, I was so moved, Justice, by that. Let's not pull our punches here. This has saved my life, and this changes the lives of countless people around me. And I guess this is a question for both of you. And I'm not totally sure how to phrase it, but I'm wondering about vision. And when you are thinking about programming or the work that you do or the space that you're creating, do you have a really strong vision of what does success look like? What are we trying to achieve? Or is it just, we happen to save someone's life? I guess I don't know exactly how to phrase that, but I'm wondering what's your what's guiding you towards the impact that you've had on young people?
I would love to both answer that if we could.
Okay, you go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I guess first and foremost, I would feel great if young people that spend time in first generation come out feeling ferocious and really just proud and comfortable of who they are, and like they, that they can try anything and not be afraid to take risks in life, and know that if you get a no, that you don't stop there. Like those are like the things that I really hope that people come out of, and that people come out feeling that they have skills to support their peers and their community, that the skills are there already, and that we're just allowing them to develop and grow and become more confident in them, and that we are creating a culture of kindness, So those are like first and foremost. I would feel successful if people feel like free to follow their dreams in their life and don't have to just think about survival, and know that, so that's my quick answer. And there's all the artistic stuff, but that's all more important,
For me, I feel like the vision is my vision, because obviously I didn't start this whole thing, but my vision is definitely for people to, especially people who get up on stage and speak, but everyone to, feel like, yeah, we did that. Like, I made this, I did this, I went on stage and talked about this. I want people to feel proud of themselves. I want people to feel connected to each other, and I want them to feel connected to their community and the world. I want people to come out with a critical consciousness to be able to, you know, analyze a situation, and instead of, either running away or, becoming defensive or going to these quick, easy solutions, we think and we feel and we speak from our hearts, and we do not speak from our nerves, I guess, if that makes sense. So the vision really is for people to know that it's okay to heal, that it's okay to be open, and that it's okay to speak and to be loud.
Really cool. I'm not going to answer. Well, something that motivated me to ask that is I find that in the context of like feminist stuff and stuff with boys and men and other folks who identify as male, sorry, that was totally not the right way to articulate that, but you get what I mean. It can be, anyways, in the field that I'm in, I feel like it can be really easy to position myself on like, what am I against? What do I stand against? And what am I trying to change or challenge? And so over the last probably year and a half, have been really kind of gravitating towards that idea of like, what am I trying to build and what am I trying to achieve? So I think that, yeah, that your answers both resonate with me. And I also kind of love the idea that, your goal maybe isn't to like change someone's life, but the process as a young person of being told like your voice matters and your vision matters and you should be proud and you should be ferocious, like that stuff does change lives. So yeah, really cool.
Great. Jonathon, you invited people to raise their hands, and someone has. Do you want to hear from them?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's see if we can get Chris's line to unmute.
Yeah, I am. This is my first time being a part of Men Engage. I was told about this by a community partner. I'm a founder and visionary of Overcome Exploitation, which really elevates the voices of males that have been commercially sexually exploited or sex trafficked. I'm a survivor myself. Happy to be in this space.
Oh, welcome.
I think it's important that we engage all men, not just feminists, or build kind of a more inclusive place where all genders are able to advocate. So I just wanted to say you did a fabulous job on the show, and I was happy to be a part of this and watch it. I do have to get going, but thank you.
Oh, good appreciation. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Jonathon, you said something a few minutes ago that I thought about a lot, which is how do we think about not just what we're against, but what we're for and what we want to work towards. And I think that that's a conversation that is happening on at least a national scale here amongst people who are in the Black Lives Matter movement and people who are talking about decolonization. That how can we decolonize? How can we create gender equity if we don't have a vision of what it can look like, and how, and that is free of kind of the constructs of how we all grew up and what's been going on for centuries. So yeah, I really resonated. So that one of the questions, whenever I, as a practitioner of youth work, are thinking about things like you said you were thinking about that, I immediately bring it to the group and I say, can we envision liberation? How do we envision that? Because I can't, so I always make my personal journey, I connect my personal journey to the youth journey and vice versa, always. Do you find that happens with you, that you're growing alongside of the young people you work with?
Okay, whoa, really cool question. Before I answer that question, I want to resonate with what you said about like envisioning the future. And for me, I actually hadn't heard that description of first generation and what that means. But to me, that kind of really speaks to first generation. And maybe this is too much of a digression, but the two stories that I actually hadn't noticed this connection before, and I thought of it when you were just in sort of connecting like youth programming with like decolonization, for example. The example is a 14-year-old that I know who did a podcast project with me, and he talked about challenging hazing. So hazing is like ritualistic bullying, and it's about like power and like initiation into different environments. And it's also, I think it was like 90% of high school students that witness or participate in hazing won't tell an adult. So there's like this super strong culture of silence around hazing. And so when this young guy was, I think he was 13, he was expected to like initiate into like this like hazing thing at summer camp. And he was like, I'm not okay with this. And he ended up telling a couple adults and working, and then ended up sort of connecting with a couple of his peers. And the words that have stuck with me is he said, I'm very proud of that we were the first, and we stopped it. And hopefully next year, because we don't perpetrate that violence, then the next group doesn't even see it to begin with. And so he really like saw himself as this branch in the road. And that was really cool. And I hadn't thought of this, but one of the only other times that I've had that kind of conversation where someone said, I am the one who broke that cycle, was with a young woman that I was alongside in occupying part of the grounds outside the Parliament buildings during Canada's 150th anniversary, which was a couple of years ago. A bunch of Indigenous people showed up and for obviously very good reasons sought to center their perspectives and experiences within the sort of colonial celebration of Canada's identity. And she had again a really similar like identity of like, I am the one who made that change in my family and broke that cycle. And I hadn't really noticed that connection before. So again, it's like a bit of a digression, but that's like a light bulb that went on in my mind when you kind of connected like youth to like broader social change. Yeah, and then to actually answer your question, learning and growing alongside youth. Yeah, that's such a cool thing to bring up. I get asked things pretty regularly where I'm like, I'm gonna have to really process that. And it's easy to come up with like really simple answers. Like, for example, a kid once asked me, "What about self-defense?" we were talking about gender-based violence, I guess. And he said, what about self-defense? What if a girl hits me? Then what? Then what's allowed? And obviously the easy answer is violence is violence. But I took it away for the week, and I met up with him and his group the week after and did a bunch of research about like domestic violence, about boys' perspectives of power, about like how patterns of violence like escalate and stuff like that. And it was a really eye-opening thing that I learned about. And that was like a year and a half ago. So I'd have to like revisit the article that I wrote about it to like really remember exactly what I learned. But the point is that he asked me something and I didn't have a direct answer. And that's happened like again and again, whether we're talking about violence or talking about like asking for help about mental health or talking about navigating relationships and like safety and radicalization online. Like it's just like thing after thing after thing. It's a very regular thing that I am like learning and educating myself and unlearning kind of crucially as well. So yeah, that's a good question. Again, if anybody gets anything sparked like I did, feel free to jump in. But I think I'm going to bounce back with another question because I feel like I've talked for a whole bunch in a row. We actually have a question. Here, let's do, I have a question that I wanted to make sure that I ask, and then I think that question will feed into the question that Alex just posed. So we'll put a pin in Alex's question because the thing that I want to touch on that to me is like a really important thing that we talk about is it's very easy to have these like ideals of like transformative experiences and like really deep connection and empowering young people and all that kind of thing. And I also want to like center ourselves or like delve in a little bit of like what's the journey to get there. And so I guess the question, and again, this is probably for Julie, but as well for like Justice, because Justice experiences it, or experienced it. And so the question is like, what are some ingredients to like youth engagement and transformation? What are some of like the tangible practices that that looks like?
Okay, so if we're making a soup and we want to have some essential ingredients, I think I wanted to, I'm going to double back and bring that and make a connection that coming to it as an adult who doesn't present myself as having all the answers, and I'm not an authority on how to live life or how to address social justice, but I am really good at creating a space and listening. And I think, you know, young people, they do a lot on their own, given the space and creating a culture within a group of listening. So for me as an adult, the first thing I have to do is model a really deep listening, where when someone's talking, there isn't the feeling that you have to answer the question or fix it or make a suggestion, but it's literally just a space where people can talk. And that's a big ingredient for what we do in first generation. And also in that listening, maybe a solution or an answer doesn't come out, but people find out that they're not alone, that other people are going through similar experiences. So we create a space where people can express their thoughts, their feelings, their ideas. We have fun and adventures together because that's probably one of the most important things in life, whatever age you are. And that's how you also get to know people, is to go through experiences together. So you build trust through talking and through doing and playing. We set the bar high in terms of our community, our youth, our intergenerational community is really what it is, because we're all in it together. We have a community agreement that has grown over the years, but at the very onset of first generation, which was in 2008, we created our first community agreement, and we asked the question, what do you or we need in order to feel safe, respected, welcomed, so that we can be our best selves together? And out of that grew our community agreement, which is now quite long, because each year or within each incoming group or person, we look at it again and they add, and they have to, assess whether this is the community whether it speaks to them. And I think that's really important, because I guess we have a pretty zero tolerance for, for bullying or put downs or even teasing. And we spend time unpacking the spectrum of violence, so it's a combination of having fun and doing trainings around what unhealthy masculinity might look like and bring to the table, like hypermasculinity might look like and bring to the table, and what how can we redefine it, and how can the group become agents for change, both within our group and in the larger world. So I guess that's my answer so far.
I guess I would add like a little example for the spectrum of violence, because violence in any form is violence, and it really does not make people safe. People feel safe to be in a community where you're supposed to feel safe and feel welcome and feel like you're being nurtured, for there to be any sort of violence. So I'll just give like what we do. I won't go too far into it, but basically we meet, and it's not just we sit and we have this workshop and that's it. It's an ongoing conversation that lasts a long time, and a lot of the time things from our conversations get woven into our pieces and we can kind of connect them. But basically we sit down, all of us, and we talk about the different forms of violence, from subtle or masked to just in the middle, mild violence. And then we have the extreme forms of violence, so we can go from indirects all the way up to murder or fist fights and stuff like that,
or genocide.
So we try to encompass it all, and a lot of the time that brings up a lot of like stories of our own that we share, and we like to all contribute. And usually it goes where we each add at least like 5 things, if not way more, where there's not enough to fit on the page and we have to get another one. And we talk about our experiences with them, and sometimes especially people who have been in first gen longer will ask the people who have been there not as long, I guess, some further questions, not like digging into your life, like prodding at you, but like, what do you think about this? Why do you think this happens? And it can blossom into, different conversations. And it all depends on the group, but yeah.
So a lot of talking, and both from the conceptual, critical standpoint and the personal, but putting equal emphasis on listening. I'm interested to hear your answer to that question, because I know you'll add ingredients to that. What is similar and what is different?
I think it's mostly similar. I actually don't think maybe I haven't looked hard enough, but I don't know where I'd find research about fun alongside deep relationships. But sorry, you go for it.
Oh no, I can provide some research.
Oh, you can? Okay, great.
Well, when I was working in the jail, we did a lot of laughing.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, this is really important. This laughing is really important. And I looked online about research about, this was like 20 years ago, healing serotonin levels and trauma.
Right.
And healing. And so, I do believe that when you bring a group of young people together, there is, you know, or any group of people together, there's a lot of healing that has to go on if it's from a social justice standpoint. So I think fun and laughter are, you know, they open up the individuals to be more receptive to all these other ideas and possibilities.
Nice.
That's my research.
No, cool. Yeah, and that's super. That's what I felt too. Is that there's something that happens. Laughter is not just laughter. There's definitely some other stuff going on relationally, especially. But also, I was just reading about activism, and I can't remember, but it was some young activist who had some, wow, now I'm just butchering it, but some sort of quote about like, how can we make this fun, like a place that people want to be, and yeah, that was really cool as well. So yeah, that fun, that like we're just going to spend time together is really where like relationships can sort of start to flourish. I think for me, and this might steer us toward Alex's question, like there's just the goals for the goal that is that young people feel like they're known, I think, both by their peers and by the adult facilitators as well, that their interests, their passions, their like vulnerabilities, their hopes, their fears, like all of those things are like valid, and they're going to be honored for those parts of themselves. And yeah, I had an interesting conversation with a 12-year-old who just turned 13 yesterday, where he did something, and actually, well, and this has happened again and again, where a kid has done something bad, who's done, well, in quote unquote bad, and has come back towards me being really sure that I didn't like them anymore. That well, so maybe this is too vague. So this kid was in a really precarious situation. His best friend was getting bullied pretty heavily, and so he decided to distance himself from his best friend and sort of drop his best friend and join in on the bullying rather than stand up for his best friend. And then when he tried to reconnect with his best friend, he and I talked about it a little bit, and he really had an expectation that I'd made my mind up, that I didn't think he was a good person, I didn't think he was a good friend, and I didn't want him anywhere near this other kid. And yeah, and my perspective was like, I get it, dude. Like I get like what it's like to be vulnerable, especially vulnerable in middle school. And I also know you well enough to know that you've got integrity, and that your relationships mean something to you. And so there was both like empathy there, as well as a depth of knowledge. And I think those that sense of like being known and supported are kind of key things to working with young people.
And
Go for it.
the most at the core of what you just shared was this young person had trust that he wouldn't be judged by if he confided in you and shared his experience, or he talked to you about it, and having, like, working with youth, if we're talking about key ingredients, not being judgmental is pretty important.
Totally. And another one that I'll say is, and I'm kind of curious because we're both talking about youth with Justice right here. So Justice, you can by all means be like, you guys are totally wrong. Here's what it is. But another thing that I'll say, because this sort of just popped into my mind, is also like honoring like the autonomy of young people and the agency of young people. I've really had to teach myself to say questions like, what do you mean? Rather than, because what do you mean just doesn't give them any information about what I think. It just asks them to clarify. Or another question that I use a lot is, what are you going to do? And it doesn't give them any information about what I think they should do. Or, because I used to really try to tell kids, this is what you should do. You'll be a lot safer if you just do what I say. And so that honoring of young people is like, I don't know if I'd say independence, but like agency is another one that I've had to really teach myself, alongside being non-judgmental, is being like open to them being the key people in their lives. We should address Alex's question, but let's pulse check Justice. Is there anything that we're totally missing?
I don't think so. I think you guys really get good at your jobs. Definitely, you guys are doing your jobs very well. Honoring autonomy, I think, is really important because telling somebody what they should do, just kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like when you give somebody an answer to a math question instead of teaching them how to solve the math. It's like they're not going to, well, me specifically, if you tell me exactly what to do, I'm not going to be able to apply what you tell me to do in that specific situation to, any situation in general or situations of that kind. So I think it's very important to, I don't know. Yes, I think it's very important that we respect and honor autonomy and, inde- not being independent, but letting young people decide for themselves how they feel about actions they've took and being very, very non-judgmental, which I mean, if somebody comes up to you and says they've done something horrible and you're that's obviously a natural reaction, but being able to, I think it's really nice to be able to, not judge somebody, even though they've made it a mistake or done something that's you know, probably not nice or good at all. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm sure we could talk about that for another forever. But let's narrow. I do want to kind of narrow into Alex's point about what about connecting during the pandemic? What's the same? What's different? Is it possible? So I don't know if I'm as interested in logistics. Maybe we could touch a bit on that, but I'm kind of interested in those ingredients and how they translate. So I'll let you guys go first.
Okay, go ahead.
We have a very small group of 6, I believe, that regularly check in. And we kind of have a first gen time that's online, obviously. And it's after school, and it's really interesting, I guess, to build connection over a screen. It's challenging, I should say. First of all, it's challenging because you have to find new ways to do things that you've always done normally without an issue. It's well, why the hell? It's like learning how to tie your shoe a second way, which I've never done, but there's a reason I have never done it. But building connection online is kind of challenging if you've never made say you've never had a pen pal or never had an internet friend. You really wouldn't know how to do it. So with us personally, we focus on, instead of focusing on the more artistic side and developing performance, we really try to focus on conversation. And instead of developing skills, we're more heavy on peer counseling. And, sometimes we'll just stop what we're doing and just be how are we feeling? Do we feel what's going on today? Every day in our opening circle, we have an opening and a closing circle. But at the beginning of the day, we do our welcome. I say hello to you with my eyes, which means I just look in the camera and say hello. But I'm saying hello, welcome. And we go around, we talk about our day, our highs, our lows, and usually we add a fun question, just one fun question from anyone. Usually I find some way to find another question all the time. But we find a fun question and people really, we make space. So if somebody's really not having a good time, for example, I think literally yesterday, I talked for a while because I just wasn't having a good day. or, you know, if there's a big thing that's going on in your life, we're not going to, you know, okay, let's go do an improv class. Like, we're not going to do that to you. You know, it's like, hold on, let's talk about it. We encourage ourselves to like be on camera because it's much harder to connect when you're like
A name.
a name or a profile picture, or like you can only see your forehead. It's much, and we also, when we are building skills, especially movement, we try to, usually we build off of creativity and not building like, oh, you do this two-step. This is the foundation. We look at like, what can you do? We give you, you know, let's try to do this and include this, but we can do it however we want. We're doing a movement piece to a poem I made or wrote it myself, but no, we're doing like we're working on movement pieces inspired by poetry. And obviously we're online, so
It's really hard.
super hard.
Yeah.
But we find ways to make it work, and we find ways to make it fun. Another big thing is that the adults are not part of the, you know, we go into breakout rooms and we all, me and everyone else, we all work on it together and give each other ideas. And you know, some people might be like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Like, I don't even know how to do this. But it's always, you know, you just gotta give me something, and throw something. What is it? When you throw a fishing line, just like
like a net.
something.
No,
You know, give me something.
I'm not sure what the metaphor is.
like just like, or I'll give you something. I don't know, but yes,
he's talking about our creative process right now, which is instead of learning choreography, they create, since we're a movement-based theater, they're actually creating their own movement to go with text, you know. But like Justice said, it's been really hard, and I have to say that you know, we wanted to give up at the beginning. The biggest surprise is that the ensemble that was the closest, the group of people who had been together for 2 years, 3/4 of them just said, I don't want to be on Zoom anymore. And they just wanted to ditch. And this was a small group of seniors, high school seniors who were about to transition to college. And we lost them, right? And then the younger kids that are in this Ubuntu group that we work with were the ones where the community actually solidified and grew on Zoom. So these were 8, 9, 10-year-olds. Surprisingly enough, that community solidified and grew, but we had to come up with all kinds of creative ways to bridge this screen thing. And then, like Justice was saying, we were building first generation as well. And so we got to know new people on Zoom, where we pretty much, you know, we did creative exercises, but we pretty much threw out any priorities. And the only priority was, what do we need right now? As young people,
Yes.
as adults, what do we need? And because we're in a pandemic, you know, it's like, you know, we're in a war. What do we need? We need this, and this. And we actually did some self-care and anxiety addressing workshops, some Saturday workshops, but it really switched from having, you know, even any agenda to what do we need in the moment.
Got a question.
Interesting.
I've got a question. It's kind of about how you represent this word leadership is sort of in the title of our talk, I think today, is what comes to mind? I mean, is it decision making? Is leadership, that mean, is there a voice in your organizations for youth to design the future or to make decisions? Or is it a kind of is it informal? Is leadership informal, or is it more formal? Is there formal leadership for what you would consider youth versus adult? How would you frame that? I bet that Justice knows something about that.
Okay.
Leadership. You know, how do you think of the leadership?
Well, with first gen, leadership is, you know, it's a thing.
Yeah.
We have leadership. We encourage ourselves to, like, encourage other people. So for me, leadership looks like because I'm like, I've the last one standing.
Oh
I'm the
yeah.
last.
You've been around.
I've been in for like almost 4 years now, and I'm the only one that we have right now who has any experience with first gen in person right now. I mean, there's people who have seen performances, but I'm the only one who's been in first gen. Right
Who's
now.
in the current ensemble building process? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have to take more of a. I don't want to say leadership because leadership makes it seem like I'm like spearheading.
Right.
But I'm more like kind of backing. I'm not in the back, but I'm like backing. I want to support and uplift people while also offering any of my experience that I have. So like, when we talk about first gen in person, because hopefully we'll be able to start something soon, I obviously am very vocal. I'm like, this is my life. Like first gen is my second family. I would not be anywhere without first generation. I swear to the heavens up above. Like this is like, I'm like always like first generation. Wait, do not leave us. Don't leave us. I know it's really challenging to do, and you don't even want to do anything on Zoom. You don't, because you're in school all day. And for most of the year,
All
you were
Zoom.
on. So back aches, your eyes are burning. I used to take like 3-hour naps like after school because I couldn't do it. And schoolwork is hard, and I'm like venting. But like when it comes to leadership, it's more of a nurturing role I play. I feel like I'm more like, these are, I'm still an ensemble member. I'm still youth and I'm still their equal. I'm building relationship. Also making decisions. I'm part of the board.
He's actually Justice is on our board of directors. So there's that too.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I'm asking. There's so many ways, right? Yeah. It's confidence. It's a sense of support. The sense of I know why we're here. That's all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there are many models within youth development practices.
Yeah.
Work practices, and some are like, oh, don't be adultist, don't make decisions, all the decisions should lay in the hands of the youth. And I think we're not at that end of the spectrum. Like people come and we can say, well, this is what first generation is and this is what we do. Oh, you don't want to make a performance? Well, does that mean we stop making performances? So it's an ongoing question, but
it's it's kind of like voice. You're part of the conversation. You can make things happen. It's sort of what it's there for. Yeah.
But we try to give a lot of, as much agency, like everybody knows that nobody determines the content of the performance. It is the ensemble that
does that. Yeah. It's a natural sense of what you call leadership. So we're 10 minutes from our ending point. It's always come to the point we're in a roll. Let's just keep going. But when it's 5 minutes, we'll start doing a bit of a wrap up and ask for more questions. See if folks who are listening and participating, if you got some things you really would like to hear talked about, send us a note or raise your hand. We would love to. Jonathon, with this conversation about leadership, what comes to your mind? What does it mean? I mean, is it kind of the wrong word?
Interesting. I really liked Justice's description of like, I'm backing the project. And I think that's almost sometimes the role of adults as well.
Right. Adults,
and go ahead.
Not necessarily sure about what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, right. I will say that in the development of our programs has become more collaborative through the pandemic, which has been a cool thing because we're like building our own space rather than, for example, being in the gym after school. The decision and like logistics and administrative stuff that would like develop the program had a lot of adults who were part of that conversation before the pandemic. But because we're now for example, using Discord predominantly, which is a platform for like community building online that's super familiar to young people. Like they know that space better than I do. And so there's a lot more collaboration and there's a lot of youth leadership. And so far it's been relatively organic and like in small like focus groups, group conversations, but also like one-on-one ideas and conversations. But as we continue into the future, like there is a goal to institutionalize that a little bit. And what I mean by that is to like come up with, whether it's youth moderation, youth leadership, youth council, youth advisory, like don't know exactly, but there's like a real sense of like potential there, both for how we could inform ourselves as an organization, but also how we could like help young people build skills, build capacity and confidence and ferocity by giving them the space to develop those skills. The one thing I will say is that a lot of people in the world, a lot of organizations and government bodies have youth advisory BS, which is an acronym that means doesn't really do much. And so I think that's kind of like the one thing to be aware of, is that if we are engaging young people as leaders, we really need to honor that and not just give them the semblance of leadership, or we like give them an opportunity to talk and then ignore what they say. That so there's kind of there's risk there, there's effort there, it's time consuming to do that kind of thing, but that's something that's really important as we like explore the possibilities for increasing youth leadership, is how to make sure that's done with like integrity to their contributions.
That means something. Good. Absolutely good. So are there any final questions on your lists, the things you would love to share with regard to this question, this conversation of promoting successful engagement? And I think your contexts are different. The next theater project is about theater primarily, and Jonathon, your group Next to Men is an educational framework. We do activities too.
Yeah, and I think there's something really powerful about the arts that that I think is kind of a commonality between us. That's something that I still want to do more of, and and hopefully finding ways outside of the pandemic to do more of. But the arts as a space for like envisioning the future. Both, actually also processing our past and our present and envisioning the future. Arts, whether like I don't know what the art is behind Julie, but that tree has kind of been captivating me for the past hour on that board behind Julie. But yeah, so the arts I think is another thread between us. It's not just youth engagement, but like arts-based stuff has a lot to it. So I don't know where that came from, but that's just something that came to my tongue.
I had one thought that might be, I don't know if this is like, it's not a very exciting note to as a last point, but I think it's important. An important ingredient is, and I'm interested in how you do it, is the question of how do you, so you talked about youth leadership.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate feedback from your members of your group into the work? And, I guess, there's always an emphasis on collecting data, like feedback goes into data, which is then used for either fundraising purposes or other purposes. But as a small organization, we actually fall way short. We don't collect data, but we do collect feedback, and it's very important to us, and it helps deepen the relationship when young people are encouraged to express negative experiences in the group or frustrations or challenges. So we have our process. I'm curious what your process is.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to that. There's like feedback and data collection for the measurement of efficacy or effectiveness.
But that wasn't what I was talking about.
Yeah, and that's like its own thing.
Right.
There's feedback and evaluation for improvement, and like the developing of like programs and spaces that are responding effectively to young people's needs. And there's feedback related to almost like in the moment, and that's sometimes like even like nonverbal feedback, and being really aware of what you're like getting, what's feeding back to you in this space. So, and I could probably keep listing different kinds of feedback. So there's lots to that. For me, one of the difficult things, one of the difficult things for me is that it's sometimes I feel like I'm asking youth for their time and attention. And I want to like honor that they've got like other interests and they've got limited amounts of energy and like homework, for example. And so it becomes difficult sometimes for me to say, like, show up and participate and like bring your energy and your heart into this space, and then stick around so I can ask you how it went. Sometimes it feels like it's asking even more. And that sometimes makes me like hesitant to like really do like delve too deeply into feedback. And I don't know if I have a really strong answer for that. One is to say that young people, not every young person, but a lot of young people do appreciate being asked and do have really, really important answers to give. But I also I'm interested, I've been doing this a little bit over the last little bit, but yeah, interested to find ways to like weave it in so that it's not like, let's do all this and then let's talk about and then let's evaluate how it went or get feedback on how it could improve, but like find ways to like weave those together so that it's a bit more of a natural process.
That does sound challenging. I'm going to have to wrap it up.
Sure.
You wrap it up and say that this is really
I mean, that's
good.
kind of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just noticing the time. We got 2 minutes officially. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you, Justice, Julie, Jonathan. Your thoughts are really rich and special, and they're gems. And I think the whole roundtable conversation about what is youth programming and successful engagement and leadership is long. And I feel like now we started and we could keep going. I'm glad we feel that way right now, right? At least I feel that way right now. I want to say thank you. I want to ask Bianca if she wants to jump in and say a few closing words. If you're there, Bianca, I know you have to say a word about the symposium that we're operating. So welcome, join in.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you to all the speakers, and thank you to all of you for joining us. Joining us today. I just wanted to share, as we're going to closing, this is an ongoing symposium. We have been going since November. We have exactly 2 weeks left, and then on the 22nd of June is our closing event. So just to let you know that next week there is a session around advocacy and accountable advocacy. On Wednesday next week, we have all the regions coming together. So this is the North America region, and we have 5 other regions. So all 6 of the regions will come together and reflect on how COVID has impacted the ability to do network strengthening. And then the following Tuesday on the 15th, we will be launching, well, we won't be launching, but Promundo will be launching the State of the World's Fathers report. So that's coming up. And then we will have sessions the Wednesday and the Thursday. And then to let you know that registration is now open for the closing event. So you can go to mainengage.org/symposium, and you'll find there how to register for the closing. And with that, just again, thank you to everyone, and we hope to see you all again online soon. And take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.